everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps. Today I'm going to show you how to make this adorable unicorn magnet. You will need Lion Brand DIY yarn in white, hot pink, yellow, sky blue, and just a tiny bit of black for the embroidery. Now with the black, we're actually going to be separating out the strands of yarn into its individual plies so that we can get a much finer line to embroider the eyes with. If you would rather not separate out the black yarn, you can substitute black embroidery floss instead. Of course, you'll also need a crochet hook, size 5 millimeters, or whatever size you need to get the gauge that you want for your magnet. You will also need a magnet that will fit inside of your work. This one is about 1 inch in diameter. Anything up to about 1.5 inches should work just fine without any problems. You do want to make sure that it's relatively thin. And finally, you'll need a hot glue gun to attach your magnet. This is a mini hot glue gun that Zyron gave me for free to use for this crochet along project. Let's get started with the back circle. Chain 2 and work 6 single crochet into the second chain from your hook. If you prefer to use a magic circle, you can do that instead. Join with a slip stitch into the first stitch. Now if you're using a magic circle, or like me, if you did not use a slip knot, you can go ahead and pull that tail to tighten up your inside circle. If you do end up with a hole, you can always sew it closed later with that tail. For round 2, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to increase in each stitch around. Now to do my increase to make it a little bit more seamless, instead of doing 2 single crochets in the same stitch, I'm going to put 1 single crochet into the back loop only, and then 1 single crochet into both loops. Let me show you that again. 1 single crochet into the back loop only, and then 1 single crochet into both loops. And I'll do that in every stitch around. Now I have 12 stitches, and this last little bit here is actually the slip stitch that was used to join the round, so I'm not going to work into that. I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into the first stitch of the round to join it. For round 3, chain 1 and work an increase into the first stitch, and then we're going to alternate between the increase stitches and the regular stitches. So it's increase and then just a regular single crochet into the second stitch. Increase, and then a regular single crochet. And we're going to do that all the way around, and that will take our stitch count to 18. I've finished the round, and now I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. In round 4, we're going to do an increase and then 2 regular stitches, and do that all the way around. So increase in the first stitch, and then 2 plain single crochets, increase in the next stitch, and then 2 plain single crochets, and keep doing that all the way around. That should bring us to a total of 24 stitches. So the next section is the ears, and I'm going to be making the outer portion, the white portion of the ear. Well, this is the right side of our fabric. This is the side that's going to be showing. But this is the back piece, which means this side is going to be the back of the unicorn. The face of the unicorn is going to sit here. So even though we're on the right side, we're technically on the back, right? So if I want to do the white of the ears, which needs to be on the back, that's going to be the front loops on this side. It's going to be on this side of the piece. The back loops, the inside loops, I'm going to keep for the pink portion of the ear. So because I'm going to be working in the front loops only, I'm going to join into the front loop only. That way my yarn is already where I want it to be when I'm ready to start the ear. So let's start the ear. We're already in the front loop of this stitch. Now we're going to work into the front loop of these 3 stitches, starting with the one we're already in, right? So I've chained 1 to get up to the height, and I'm going to single crochet in each of these 3 stitches. I didn't do it in the video, but this is where you want to place a stitch marker. And then I'm going to chain 1 and turn to start the next row. Now for this next row, I'm going to take 3 stitches and decrease it down to 1. To do that, I'm going to skip the first stitch and then work a decrease over these next 2. Rather than a normal single crochet 2 together, I'm going to work a little bit more streamlined of a decrease. I'm inserting my hook into the front loop only of the first stitch, and then twisting it around and inserting it into the front loop only of the second stitch. Yarn over and pull up your loop through those 2 front loops, as though you were pulling it up through a stitch. And then I can finish my single crochet. Now that's just a little bit neater and more streamlined than a single crochet 2 together, but you can certainly do a single crochet 2 together if you prefer. So that is the first ear done, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this yarn and fasten off. Now notice, because we turned for that row, I'm now on the wrong side. I'm on the inside of the magnet, which is not where I want to be. This is actually where the magnet is going to go right here. Okay, so to start the next ear, the first thing I want to do is turn back to the right side of the fabric. Okay, now I'm going to skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, which I'm going to be using for the horn later. Okay, so skip those 3 and start in the next stitch. We're going to go ahead and pull up another loop of white. We're going to join with a slip stitch, which means pull up the loop and then chain 1, basically. That is joining with a slip stitch. Now we're going to do the same thing that we did for this ear over here. So I've already done a chain 1. I'm going to single crochet into the first stitch, front loop only, and then into the next 2 stitches as well. So I have 3 single crochets in the front loop only. I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and then do that decrease, skip the first stitch and decrease over these 2 stitches. And again, you can use a regular single crochet 2 together if you prefer. This is just my preferred decrease method. And then I will fasten off this piece as well. Now we're going to work the inner portion of the ear. We're already on the correct side. We're on the wrong side of the fabric, where the inner portions of the ear will go here and then the face will go on top. So keep it on this side that we're on and grab your pink yarn. Now remember, when we made the ears, we used only these loops that were on this side, right? We were facing this side and they were the front loops. So we left these back loops exposed and we're going to use those for the inner ear. But now we've turned our work. So those back loops have become our front loops, right? So starting with either ear, it really doesn't matter. You're going to pick up each of these 3 front loops that are in front of the ear. You're going to work a single crochet into it. Pull the ear up slightly and you'll see very clearly where the back loops and the front loops are that you need to work into. So pick up your first front loop and go ahead and join with a slip stitch. And you can fold that ear out of the way so it doesn't bother you if you want to, the outer ear. See how I've folded it back? Okay, so go ahead and do a single crochet in this stitch, and then a single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. And then just like we did for the outer ear, chain 1 and turn, skip the first stitch and do a decrease over these 2 stitches. And then fasten that off. Now we're going to turn again so that we're on the wrong side of the fabric again. Okay, so we're back to where we started and we're going to do the other ear. Find the first of those 3 stitches, join the pink, okay, and then single crochet in each of these 3 stitches that are in front of this ear. And then go ahead and chain 1 and turn and do the decrease just like we did for the other ears. and fasten off. So now if I turn my work around, I can see that I have these two ears that have white on the outside and lots of strands of yarn, white on the outside and pink on the inside. Now we are going to do a white edging around here to join them together, so they will have that little, the pink will be resting inside white. But for now, you can see these two layers are the same. This is a really good point to stop and weave in all of your ends. When you weave in the ends on the ear, try to weave it in between the two layers where they're going to be folded together rather than on the front or the back where you might see your work. Okay, so fold these two apart and weave it in the middle. I've woven in all the ends and now the back of the unicorn is starting to look more like an actual face. So it's time to go ahead and glue on the magnet. So I take my handy dandy glue gun and my magnet, and I'm going to put a dot of glue on the magnet. It doesn't have to be all the way around, just enough to make it stick. So just about like that. Okay, and then I press it down right into the middle of the back circle. Make sure that the pink side of the ears is facing up because you want the magnet to be inside your work, not outside. And that is glued on. I'm going to put up my kickstand and put this back down to cool. And you can see that this is fully attached. The front circle is the same as the back circle, so I'm going to work through it very quickly. If you want to see it slower, you can go back to the beginning of the video and watch how the back circle worked, okay? So start by chaining 2, and then you're going to work 6 single crochet into that second chain from the hook. Now pull on the tail to tighten your circle, and slip stitch in the first stitch to join. For round 2, we're going to increase in every stitch and join with a slip stitch. For round 3, we're going to increase in every other stitch, so it's increase and then regular single crochet, and keep doing that all the way around, and join with a slip stitch. And then finally for round 4, we're going to increase and then do 2 regular single crochet and repeat that all the way around. So increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, and repeat that all the way around. We're going to go ahead and join this one through both loops and then we can fasten off. You may want to weave in both of these ends before we go on to do the face. Let's make some cheeks. Chain 2 and work just 3 single crochets into the second chain from your hook. And then go ahead and pull that tight. And what you'll end up with is something of an oval shape. Leave enough of an end to sew it on and go ahead and fasten off. Let's make a second cheek as well. So now we have 2 kidney-like ovalish cheeks that we can sew on. I've lined up the first cheek around the outside edge and now I'm just going to do a whip stitch. Be sure not to interfere with these stitches around the edge, but I'm just going to do a whip stitch. So I'm going to go down through the white part and then up through the pink. Get that tail out of my way, go down through the white and up through the pink. And what this will do is this will wrap the yarn around the edge of the cheek so it gets a nice flush kind of look against the white. Down and up. And the placement for the first cheek is less important because you can place the second cheek accordingly. The second cheek you'll want to be more careful about placement. Down through the white, up through the pink, all the way around. And And then I'll put both tails through to the back so that I can weave them in later. So given the placement of the first cheek, I want the second cheek to be right about here. Do you see that? They're kind of at an angle pointing towards the center of the fabric. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, and then I will weave in those ends and come back and do the eyes. Cut yourself a length of black yarn no more than about 18 inches long, because otherwise you'll have trouble separating it. Now with your needle you can pry apart the end and you will see that it has 4 separate little plies to it, right? We're going to take those apart separately and use them separately to work our eyes. So grab one, make sure you've got it separate from the others, and just pull. Ease this bunching down as you go, just like that, and you should be able to pull one strand out. So this is the strand that we're now going to use to embroider the eyes. If you choose not to take apart your yarn like this, you can instead use embroidery floss. I've woven in the tail at the back, and now I've decided I want kind of a sleepy eye look. So I want an eye that goes a little bit like that. So I'm going to bring it up here, and then I'm going to bring it down where I want it to end, and I'm going to want it to be a little bit like this, so I want it to end about here-ish, right there. So I'm going to bring it down there, and I'm not pulling it all the way tight, okay? I'm leaving it with enough looseness to give me the eye shape that I want. And now to hold that shape, I'm going to make some eyelashes. So I'm coming up right at the bottom of that curve. And then I'm going to come down just in front of where I came up to make a tiny little eyelash there. See? And then I'm going to make some more eyelashes to kind of round out that curve all the way around. I think I'll just do 3 eyelashes. That should be enough to give me a pretty shape. Maybe I'll do a couple more eyelashes. I like the eyelashes. Okay, that looks like a pretty eye to me. It's got 4 little eyelashes. I might do one more eyelash right at the edge here. It is possible to overdo this, so as much as you may want to get lots and lots of eyelashes, it's better to go fewer, but there we go. Now that's a shape I like for my eye. So that's a nice sleepy eye. I'm going to come up and do the exact same thing on this side. So my cheek is not very even, but if I come up across the nose right about there, and then I come down right about there-ish, that should give me about the same shape. And again, I secure it with some eyelashes. There we go. There are my 2 sleepy little eyes. Now I'm done with the black, so I can go ahead and weave this tail in here. So it's a little bit lopsided, but that's not the end of the world. These can look a little lopsided and still look cute. So now it's time to join our layers together and to do the horn. So we're going to start here where the marker is. We're going to go up and around the ear, around the outside, up and around this ear, and then stop here and make our horn. So this is why I placed the marker. Start with the back piece and join where the marker is in the base of that stitch. Okay. Join with a slip stitch. Now we can take this marker out and we can start joining the ears. I'm going to put one slip stitch in the side of the ear, chain one, put one slip stitch in the top of the ear, and notice I'm working through both the pink and the white layers as I do this. So one slip stitch in the top of the ear, chain one slip stitch in the side of the ear, chain one, and then one slip stitch in the base of the ear. That didn't quite get in the right spot. There we go. And that is the first ear joined. Okay, now place your face on top, making sure to line it up evenly, and select the stitch that lines up with the edge of this ear, and we're going to go ahead and do a chain one slip stitch through both layers all the way around. Slip stitch, chain one, slip stitch. Now you should have 15 stitches around the bottom of the face. And now I've done 15. And I know I've done the right number because I have 9 left in the front. 3 to go in front of this ear, 3 to go for the front of the horn, and 3 to go in front of this ear. So now I'm going to do the same thing I did for this ear, I'm going to do for this ear. So slip stitch into the base, okay? Chain one, slip stitch into the side, chain one, slip stitch into the top, chain one, into the side, chain one, and into the base. Okay, now my 2 ears are joined. Now I'm going to fasten off. I'm leaving this whole front end open for right now because I'm going to put the horn here and then the flowers around here, and that's what's going to seal that. So let's fasten this off. Before we start on the horn, you can weave in these ends to get them out of the way. I've woven in the ends, I've grabbed my yellow yarn. Now remember I said we're skipping 3 stitches in front of each ear, right? So skip the next 3 stitches on the front piece because that's going to go with the ear. Join in that 4th stitch. Right there. Join with a slip stitch, and now we're going to start working the horn. So single crochet into these 3 stitches. So the same stitch and the next 2. Okay, that's the front half of the horn. We're going to come around to the back and work the 3 stitches that are between the ears here. 1, 2, 3. We're going to work single crochets into those. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we've established a round of 6 stitches. We haven't joined it yet, but we've established a round. We're not going to join, we're going to go in continuous rounds now to give us a twist, okay? And we're going to work into the back loops only so that the front loops stay exposed and accentuate that twist. So let's go into the back loop only of each stitch around and do another single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, keeping count is very important. You can use a stitch marker to mark the beginning of your round, but this is so tiny that it just gets in the way for me. So keeping count is going to be most important to know that I'm in the right spot. So here's my 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right there. Okay? So now I'm going to do a decrease round. I'm going to go from 6 to 4. So I'm going to skip the first stitch, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, skip the next stitch, and single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now I'm down to 4. And then to seal this off, I'm just going to cut the yarn here, fasten off, and take my needle and sew it through all 4 of those stitches and pull it tight before I weave in the end. So here are the 4 stitches, and I'm going to go through the back loops again, right? kind of in a whip stitch fashion. I'm going to go from front to back through each of these stitches. Front to back 3, and then front to back 4, just like that, and pull it tight. And now I've got a nice little point at the top of my horn. And you can see that we've established a little spiral going around it, which makes it look cute, I think. Now I'm going to weave this through, making sure I'm only catching the front end of the fabric so that I'm not sewing the front and back together, because I want to stuff it a little bit. And I'm actually going to stuff it with this tail. So I've woven that in a little bit, and then I'm going to bring it back out to the side here where I've got a gap right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to shove all of this extra up in here. Now, if you don't have enough, you can cut more little pieces and shove them up in there. If you do have too much, you can cut some of it off. Also, it's easier to use little pieces, so you can take what you have and cut it into little pieces to make it fit in there better. So there we go. I've made some yarn confetti, and I'm just going to shove all that up in there. This other end that we haven't woven in yet, that needs to get woven in as well. So we can do the same thing with this. Weave it in just a little bit and then shove that up in there too as additional stuffing. So I weave that in, bring it back out again to where I've got the hole, and then shove that up in there as well. Use your finger, use your hook, use your needle, use whatever you want to use to make it nice and firm. Shove some of these extra pieces in there. I don't want to overstuff it. I want a nice pretty shape. So when I'm satisfied with the shape, which I am right now, I will stop, because I don't want to make the top too round, right? You want a nice point. So there is my nice horn right there. Now we're still open over here, right? And we need to seal that horn so the stuffing doesn't come out. We're going to do that with the flowers. Chain 4 and slip stitch into the 4th chain from the hook. Chain 3 more and slip stitch into that same chain you just slip stitched into. Keep doing that until you have 5 of these little chain 3 loop petals. And then fasten off. You're going to want one longer tail for sewing. So I left a longer tail here. And then you can weave in the shorter of your 2 tails because you only need the 1 tail for sewing. You're going to need 3 flowers, 2 blue and 1 pink. Now let's sew on the flowers. They're going to be arranged with the 2 blue on the bottom, and you can overlap them slightly if you want to, and the 1 pink right up in the middle, to give us a 3-dimensional look with the flowers. So pick one of the blue ones and sew it on. When you do this, make sure that you are sewing through all of the layers so that you close everything nicely. Also make sure that the nicer side of your flower is up, so that should be the part that's showing. So I'm just going to bring the tail out of the center here, and then I can start sewing this in. I think I like it like that. You will still have just the tiniest of gaps here, but that's not going to matter for anything. If it really bothers you, you could take a little bit of extra white yarn and sew that closed, but it shouldn't be a problem to have just that 1 stitch slightly open. Okay, there is 1 sewn on. I'll weave this in the back, and you will have some messiness in the back where the blue shows through. You should be able to limit it to just a couple of little stitches, but nobody's going to look at the back anyway. So weave in that end, and then I'll sew on the other 2 flowers in the same way and weave in those ends. And it doesn't have to be completely symmetrical. My pink flower is a little off to the side, and that's okay. I think it looks cute that way. So don't stress about getting it perfectly even. Just try to sew mainly in the center of the flower so that you can fluff up the edges of the flower and they'll curl up a little bit. Fluff up your flowers, and there you have a beautiful unicorn. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching!